Hello and welcome to week 3 of Education 508. Quick little housekeeping. Everybody should have a rubric from week 1. If you did not get one shared to you via your CSP email / Google Drive, please reach out to me by email so I can double check that I sent it to the correct person. I was double checking and cross-referencing with the roster, but I could have made a mistake, so please let me know. I will be beginning to grade the discussions and papers from week 2 here in the next couple days. So you should start seeing those graded as well. Another housekeeping item. Several of you have emailed me about Blackboard changing the formatting. I know that is an issue. And since Concordia is moving to D2L in the very near future, I believe after this semester, I'm just not going to worry about the formatting because I know that Blackboard messes it up. So you guys do not need to be concerned if Blackboard changes your formatting. So the learning objectives and the theme for this week are school culture and climate, the framework and model. We're going to discuss the trauma-sensitive school framework and how it's best implemented, articulate an understanding of paradigms and the importance of shifting paradigms in the design of a trauma-sensitive school, and identify and describe the essential elements of a trauma-sensitive school. So this is a school culture, climate, framework, and model. There is a link to it right here if you want to go and see it. But one of the things that almost every one of these models includes that I want you to be aware of is that it's a wheel. They are generally not a linear thing saying, and we're done, we've done it. It's generally everything has to keep happening in order to have a trauma-sensitive school. Some paradigms. This is one that's very relevant for me, the school to prison pipeline. The data on the bottom left corner is a little bit old, but it still holds pretty true. So for students of color, 40% of students expelled from U.S. schools each year are Black. 70% of schools involved in in-school arrests or referred to law enforcement are Black or Latino. Black students are 3.5 times more likely to be suspended than whites. Black and Latino students are twice as likely not to graduate high school as whites. And 68% of all males in state and federal prisons do not have a high school diploma. Although I will say that in Minnesota right now, that's closer to 20%. It greatly changes depending on the economy. I'm not sure about federal prisons. I can always talk about state prisons. 59% of students disciplined 11 times or more did not graduate. And the orange stats here are based on this study. Students who were suspended or expelled twice as likely to repeat their grade. In contrast, only 5% of students with no discipline involvement were held back. So really the whole idea here is that discipline does not appear to be equal depending on who you are, and that discipline has a massive impact on it not graduating or being held back a grade. So the book on the left there, What Happened to You, is by Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey. And here's some quotes from it. Resilience is not an innate quality, but a potential that requires healthy relationships. It cannot flourish in relational and emotional starvation. Therefore, caregiving and parenting quality really matters for the child's well-being. And in the blue, science gathers knowledge faster than society gathers wisdom. And many policy recommendations are made with good intentions, but with minimal understanding of the developmental needs of children. Next, from Jen Alexander's Building Trauma-Sensitive Schools, the essentials of trauma-informed schools. I want you to highlight these because they're going to be very important for your assignment that is due week 4. Essential 1 is to help students feel safe. Essential 2, to help students be connected. Essential 3 is to help students get regulated. And essential 4 is to help students learn. And one of the great things that I think Alexander does is really point out that without the first three, students can't learn. If they're not safe, if they don't feel connected to the school environment, if they're not regulated, they can't learn. This week, I'm trying to keep this video a little bit shorter because you have 35 minutes of other videos to watch, as well as 3 chapters of reading in an article before you get to the discussion board prompts. So your first video is Learning for a Lifetime, episode number 47 by Dr. Bruce Perry. This should also be linked in the discussion board. Otherwise, it is linked right here. So after you're going to review this 25-minute Twin Cities public television documentary of 3 schools in Minnesota as they establish an alternative learning environment that propels student success for a lifetime, and the Dr. Bruce Perry podcast interview. This is a long one, but the required podcast listening beginning at the minute marker 56 to the end. So you can listen to the whole thing if you really want to, but the required 25-minute part of it is minute 56 to the end. Our paradigms. Post your response to these questions. Our paradigms, the way we view things or people, impact our responses to students, their behaviors, and learning needs. In what ways are paradigms helpful? In what ways are they a detriment in education systems for students? What paradigm shifts did the 3 schools recognize as critical to student success? How do you determine whether or not you have the correct view or lens when working with students? What is the importance of shifting paradigms in the design of a trauma-informed school? What paradigm does Dr. Bruce Perry, podcast minute 56, suggest we reevaluate? What is your response to his perception? Dr. Perry also recognizes educators. Your response? And please remember to respond to at least 2 cohort colleagues and to cite your work. So you should use references. At the very least, you should be citing the podcast. For prompt 2, please select one of the essentials noted in chapter 6 of your course textbook and expound on the key component to promote student success. What paradigms may currently exist that require a trauma-informed school, teachers, administration, staff, and the community to shift? And how would you as a leader ensure that change for the benefit of all students? So not just a change that benefits some students, but all. Utilize scholarly sources to support your responses. And remember that in-text citations and references are required. Here are the essentials. So make sure you state explicitly which one you selected. And remember to dialogue with at least 2 cohort colleagues. Now, looking forward, your next bigger assignment is a case study of a trauma-informed school. This is due Saturday of week 4. And the purpose of this is to research a school that self-reports as a trauma-informed school and write a short case study, including the bullet-pointed items listed below. In order to complete this assignment, please do the following. First, find a school in North America that self-reports as trauma-informed and conduct research via the internet, including the school's website. I mean, you can just Google trauma-informed schools and find some. Here are 2 examples. Walla Walla, Washington, and St. Paul City School both report. I'd prefer if you all did not do those, because I usually end up getting, in a group of 15, at least 5 papers about the St. Paul City School. So if you can find others, I would greatly appreciate it. You're going to have your APA cover page plus 3 pages of written content. And what that's going to include is, as usual, the introduction, headings, and text citations, reference page. But characteristics of a trauma-informed school. So what makes a trauma-informed school? Then you're going to describe the school that you chose, primarily from the CHIC Schools website. And then you're going to analyze the school's alignment with the desired characteristics. So how well does this school that says they're trauma-informed actually stand up to the characteristics that you've identified as being a trauma-informed school? Conclusion, and then a reference page. And that, like I said, is due Saturday of week 4. So some things that have come up in the discussion and that I have as notes. There were a couple of notes about how I navigate trauma in prison, how I do classroom management. Well, I've recently moved into the principal role, so I don't have to do classroom management as much. But the one hallmark that I would say kind of stands out and is useful in a regular school setting is that individuals in prison just want to be treated like people. They don't want to be talked down to. They don't want to be just given orders. They just want to be treated like people. In week one, there was lots of combative, aggressive students discussed. Great job at looking deeper at what was or may have been going on with those students and how the responses could have been better. This week, we're going to talk about exclusionary discipline a lot and the idea of if you miss class, you'll be forced to miss more class. Seems to compound itself. Another one is just because it isn't traumatic or problematic for you doesn't mean it isn't re-traumatizing or problematic for others. It is very possible that something that you don't think is a big deal could actually be a very big deal for one of your students. One of the things I saw was taking away recess for small children as a punishment, which, having two little children myself, I cannot imagine taking away something that lets them burn off all that excess energy. And something I responded in a couple of your rubrics that I wanted to explain more was big T trauma versus little T trauma. I heard about this in a conference about a year and a half ago. And the idea being there used to be trainings and idea that there was big T trauma and little T trauma. Big T trauma was way more severe and big risk, have to deal with. Little T trauma, we could just brush that under the rug. And something that I want you to take away from that is we shouldn't judge other people's trauma. We don't know what's a big T trauma for them and what's a little T trauma for them. What is seemingly a little trauma for us may be a big deal for them. So do your best not to judge the trauma of others because it is unknown to us how much it will impact them. And then the prompt for this week's discussion is that the most common policy that people have wanted to change is over my entire time teaching this class was exclusionary discipline. What is one thing you will or could change or have implemented in your own classroom or school setting to try to prevent kids from being sent out of either the classroom or the school? Reminder to dialogue with two peers. Otherwise, have a great week. I look forward to reading your papers from last week and hoping that you get a good start on all of this here with the wonderful, huge chunk of snow Minnesota is supposed to get this week. So have a great week.